Now, joining me from the beating heart of Holborn here at the London Podcast Studios, we welcome back Kantar's Jane Osler. Jane, Barb is set to make changes to its rating system. What can TV ratings fans expect?
Well, there's lots of things going on in TV, aren't there? So one of which is the rise of streamers and advertising-supported streaming applications, which means that if you're an advertiser, what you want is you want to know how many people you're reaching across everything. It's not just ITV and Channel 4, it's also the streamers as well. So there are some changes, which have been publicised very recently, being made to the panel, increasing the panel, so the number of homes that are on the panel, which are representative of the population as a whole. But there's also new measurement systems being put into place to make sure that advertisers basically get what they need in terms of the reporting of who they're reaching and where.
So is this then an admission that it wasn't working well more recently?
No, not at all. No, I think it's just a natural evolution of technology, how the meter works in people's houses, and the changing television broadcasting landscape. It's not an admission of anything. It's just everything has to progress, and Barb has to make sure that it's reflecting current viewing patterns so they can report as much as the viewing as they possibly can. Okay.
Now next, Jane, we have broadcaster and TV critic Scott Bryan. Scott, I see on your Twitter that a new star is born. What's that about?
So basically my sister decided to go and get me a star for my birthday, which was 2 weeks ago. And you can buy a star for about 50 quid if you want to. And then I was thinking, okay, what do I name this star? Most people can name it after their own name, obviously. I decided to name it after the "We're Just Normal Men" meme. In the moment that hacker T-Dog and a presenter, Lauren Layfield, completely corpse live on air when Hacker came up with a line that just said, "We're normal men, we're just innocent men," and they completely lose it. And it became a meme, and it was a flag at Glastonbury Festival. Yeah. I decided to name a star after that meme. It's yet to be approved by the astronomy people.
Yeah.
But if it has been approved, I'll find it. I'll receive it in 28 days. And I've just realised the absurdity of trying to explain all of that out loud. If you've not
you did a very good job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't worry, you did a very good job.
And I remembered what I did, so that's always a plus side.
Good start.
What you did then, though, as well, was you alluded to something which has happened today.
Yes. Threads
has been launched. Do you know what your thread number is, by the way?
We were finding it just before we came on air. I went on there at midnight because they just released it just after midnight UK time.
Yes.
And I managed to be number 170,609. But already, I think in like the last hour since we've come on, because it's been announced 10 million today.
Yeah.
But I think it's gone even higher in the last hour or so. Let me see if I can load up the actual figure. What's your number?
I'm on 1,003,165, so I was a bit later than Scott. What about you?
Well, I'm like 6.9 million, so I'm not really doing very well, am I? But hey, I'm in the first 10 million, so that's something. I mean, Scott, you've been using it. What's it like? How's it been?
It feels very much like 2015 Twitter, like slight anarchy, completely and utterly unfiltered, rather positive at the time being. The transphobes and the homophobes don't seem to be on the app, or at least on your feeds as of yet. Wait and see. But it's got a nice positive atmosphere. I think it's still too early to say how successful it's going to be, even though it's hit these benchmarks already. Because I think it has to go beyond the stage of people just talking about using the app. Like, it has to get into the process of people sharing updates about the news or their opinions without thinking, oh, we have to be talking the fact that we're on threads.
And what do you make of the timing of the app's release?
I mean, it's been really interesting, just the fact that Twitter is just going through the absolute motions. It felt to me, at least, that Twitter died randomly on Saturday afternoon when they brought in that whole throttling thing that no one really can still make a sense of a week later after it actually happened. But also, it's just become the whole sense that people are not going to pay the $8, no matter how much they are trying to be convinced to. And I think people are now more prepared to give up Twitter entirely than pay money to use TweetDeck. I think they completely misjudged how much people have a love for the app. And it's all down to it's all down to Elon. I think if he never tweeted anything, probably people would have continued, but because of his own personal politics, I think that's completely alienated a large set of his own user base.
The thing that I find really interesting, though, is what happens to advertising on Twitter and, potential for advertising on Threads, because these things all have to be monetized at some stage or other. And, that's something that advertisers will be looking out for, if there is a kind of migration of people towards Threads, or are people just going to use both, and do social media managers just have another platform to deal with?
Could there be potentially some privacy issues that the EU are concerned about, do you think?
But that's the thing. If you actually try to download Threads at the moment, I've got the list of all of the things that they have in terms of data. And like the data is everything from browsing history, location, usage, contacts, purchases, health, financial. If you compare that to, let's say, Mastodon, which is another rival, so many rivals, they don't take any of that information. And those social networks were set up to kind of counter the Facebook Meta style companies. If there was to be at the moment, I mean, I can only speak from the people who I follow and are using the app, but they don't seem to care about kind of the data. I guess it's kind of the case of if you're sharing stuff on social media, you kind of expect it and anticipate it. But because, of course, Facebook and Meta's history when it comes to personal data has not necessarily been that watertight, you sort of wonder about whether such situations will come up in the future.
Now, when it comes to the tactics that Meta have used to take on Twitter, what do you make of them? Are they doing a good job? Are they being, too pushy?
Well, I think what's actually quite clever is they've done it via the Instagram brand, which people, like and enjoy and use. There've been lots of changes to Instagram in the last 2-3 years, but, people have sort of rolled with it. So I think the fact that it's connected to Instagram is quite a good strategy, because, it makes it a kind of natural evolution. It's a kind of friendly starting place, if you like.
And you say friendly starting place. Apparently, there are no plans for adverts this year.
Oh, wowzers. And I guess sort of premium features and trying to introduce a two-tier thing. I think what I just like is, it was so easy. It's 3 buttons. Because if you're trying to build a rival to Twitter, because many are trying, you have to start from scratch. You have to start from zero. And I think now there's 1 button you press that says follow everyone on Instagram.
Yeah.
I think you might come to regret that when you realise some of the people that you do follow on Instagram and when they start giving opinions on things. But at the same time, it means that it's already got a bit of life in it. It shouldn't feel like an arduous task. And I think that puts Twitter in a really ropey position.
There's still no edit feature, though, that I could make out. So that's still a miss.
Very early days, it's day one.
Yeah.
Right, day one.
Literally day one.
Yeah.
But who would have thought it?
Yeah.
Let's see. Now, Ofcom are set to investigate the hosting duties of politicians on Talk TV and GB News. That's due to impartiality concerns. Now, although broadcasting rules prohibit politicians from fronting news programmes unless editorially justified, they can host current affairs debates. But the change in the news programming landscape since the rules were introduced in 2005 has proved challenging for the regulator. So, Jane, question for you. Ofcom are researching whether audiences feel a ban is still appropriate given the rules are almost 20 years old. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's interesting how they'll do this piece of research, working for a research company, obviously, because I suspect that what might happen is you might end up with no unanimous kind of view on whether it's appropriate for politicians to, front up news programmes or read news. It will be as divisive as, some of those shows are themselves. Yeah. So I don't think it will be easily conclusive. Sure, there might be a bit of a blurred line now between what is news and what's current affairs. There's probably a bit of a grey area, isn't there, between the two. But, personally, I still find it sort of fairly shocking that a politician can be presenting a show. I think there is a line to be crossed somewhere.
Now, I work for ITV News, dear listener, and I cannot imagine a day where a politician would be fronting a news bulletin.
Yeah.
But I think what's happened is because the landscape's changed so much with technology, these new entrants into the field are seeing this as being an opportunity to try and push or bend the rules. So I guess in a way, Scott, this has led to a real kind of Americanized, opinion-based approach rather than presenting factual news. Would you say?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think Angelo, who of course is the head of GB News, he used to run Sky News Australia, and Sky News Australia has a tradition of having conservative, right-wing politicians front TV shows. It's not a new phenomenon. And I remember that caused equal amount of concern in Australia as it is now doing here. I think it's just down to the fact that, I mean, you do wonder about the legitimacy of having, for example, Esther McVeigh and Philip interviewing Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, about Conservative policy when they are Conservative sitting MPs. I mean, why? I mean, honestly, why? And I would say the same thing if it was Labour in power and you had Labour MPs interviewing. I think it's the classic case that Ofcom, as a regulator, it's just far too slow to keep up with not only the rules but also changing opinions. And this seems to be the case, that the Ofcom regulations were there in the old model, which was an Channel 4, BBC, ITV, impartial in the sense of having two different people on, sharing their views, and a generally impartial presenter trying to have a balance. We're now in an environment in which, according to Ofcom guidelines, you can have still a impartial style debate, but you can have it more kind of...
Sounds to me you're saying that Ofcom needs to be stricter and come down harder.
Well, no, I think Ofcom just need to update the rules. It seems to be the case that many people are concerned of politicians fronting TV programmes and also having guests who are also of the same political party that they are, and that perhaps the rules need to be updated to reflect that. They say that they are kind of launching a consultancy with
consultation
with the public to go and get them to share their opinions on this. But you sort of wonder, it's really struck a nerve. How long would it actually take to put into these rules if they decide to go ahead with it? But then there's the fact of who are the people in power, the Conservatives, who happen to be MPs, some of them having programmes. I couldn't imagine a situation where they would happily want to put down a rule that actually would affect their own MPs.
Now, Jeremy Clarkson's Sun column, vilifying Meghan Markle, has been found to be in breach of the IPSO code on grounds of sexism. Now, this is the one back in 2022, so it's taken a while to reach this verdict. However, the response has been divided, with some celebrating the penalty for misogyny, whilst others question what this means for press freedom. Now, Jane, IPSO upheld complaints on grounds of sexism. This is the first time it's done so in its 9 years of existence. What impact do you think this will have on representation of women in the press?
I was very pleased about this because I was one of the people that complained to IPSO because, whatever you think about any of the characters involved, what Jeremy Clarkson said was shocking, pejorative, and it just is, and that has now come out in this recent ruling. There is, I always say this, but there is, you can't just say what you want when you're just being really, really rude and pejorative about somebody. It's just not possible. You can talk about free speech, but if you're offending people, it's not right. And what was really interesting was that the people that actually brought the case were the Fawcett Society and the Wild Foundation, who represent, an organisation which counters violence against women. So, these people are taking these matters very seriously. And what he said, I'm not even going to repeat it, was really, really shocking. And it's, after...
When you saw it, how quick were you to complain about it?
I was, the moment I knew that it was possible to complain to IPSO and that was the place to go, I did it, within, it was on the same day. But I think there is something to be said about perhaps, shall we say, old school, more entitled, type of broadcaster or people who think they can just get away with things which are not acceptable anymore. You can dislike people as much as you like, but talking about hate and shit is just horrible. Yeah. It's vile.
Okay, now Scott, here's the other side of the story, I guess. Now, Fraser Nelson of The Spectator says that activists complaining on behalf of another, in this case Meghan, puts IPSO in violation of its own charter, and that's raised concerns that opinion can now be censored. What do you make of that? Has he got a point?
I mean, there's always going to be this thing about press freedom, activists having the way to sway and not allow the freedom to go and have people say what they want. I mean, arguably, Clarkson is not the only columnist who said something that's absolutely abhorrent. And I do sometimes think to myself, well, surely there should be checks and balances to ensure that columnists don't come out and say absolute outright hatred.
It's the editor, isn't it?
There are times in which, of course, newspapers are supposed to provoke, be controversial, say counterpoints, say opinions that you don't like. But there's also a time in which there is a clear line of when something is just outright offensive, particularly if it's targeted at an individual. So I kind of see Fraser's points about press freedom, etc. But I am not thinking that this is the start of this great kind of silencing of press freedom in any particular way. In fact, if anything, I sort of see the fact that it's taken so long for there to be a judgment. I mean, the news agenda is so quick. When did this happen?
It was 7 months ago.
6-7 months ago, and then of course now it's another sort of thing. And I sort of also just not really an opinion, just as a fact, really taken by that the Sun said the Sun had to go and put a front page clarification. Good luck if you were able to see it. The tiniest of line at the bottom underneath an advert in a beige background, with a tiny little font, saying something that in kind of pure media speak that would not be actually understood, I would imagine, beyond people who knew about the ruling. IPSO upholds Clarkson, such and such,
with a picture of a woman on a bikini, in a bikini on the left hand side of the page, which sort of
let's row back a bit. Should it be Meghan Markle bringing this complaint or a pressure group?
I mean, I'm not sure whether she did.
She didn't bring the complaint herself. I think the pressure groups are able to make it with agreement from her people, and I suspect that's what happened.
I guess there's a discussion to be sort of had about the involvement of online kind of groups in terms of sharing their points of view, if that's not a true representation of all readership. The idea of in the case of, let's say, with Ofcom, when you have a sizable minority of people who might be complaining about a certain show. I think in Ofcom's case, this is different, but Ofcom would only need to have one complaint if they think something's broken the rules to start an investigation. I think with IPSO in this sort of case, it was not a minority of people, it was a wide selection of people who found it completely awful and shocking. It didn't feel like this was kind of quote unquote activists, because that gives the idea that it was a certain minority of people. This certainly feels a lot larger than that.
Okay, we'll have more media talk after this. Okay, Jane and Scott are back with me now. Guys, you got to do your best to try and keep me perky. I've been up since 4 a.m. this morning. I don't drink coffee. I drink like a small child orange cordial. It's doing a good job.
Does it make a difference?
I think so. Am I still perky?
You're still perky, but that's
Slightly.
The adrenaline of recorded radio.
It's the adrenaline of podcasting. That's what it is. All right, time for some news in brief. Now, London business newspaper City AM is looking for a buyer. The free sheet had sought investment, but is now open to a sale to allow its brand to develop new revenue streams that take advantage of the new media landscape. Now, Jane, what have been the main contributing factors here? The paper's faced challenges, hasn't it, in the ad environment?
Yeah, I think obviously free sheets during COVID suffered enormously because there wasn't the footfall, the traffic around the distribution that they used to use at tube stations. There just wasn't enough to sustain the business there. Plus in the meantime, obviously the digital news market has continued to expand, continue to grow and become more popular. I thought it was interesting the language they used in their statement, which is we need to rapidly diversify and expand our revenue streams, which I'm not sure I would necessarily write that in a public facing statement. But it's clear that, the points that Scott were making, actually, all broadcasters, all publishers need to keep up with the times, and actually speed is important. You need to do it quickly.
Yeah. I think it's just the case that if you go on more of the underground now, you get signal, like up on the Jubilee line, sometimes on the Elizabeth line. This is the most London-centric conversation. If you are beyond London, by the way, I do apologise. But I think that, of course, free sheets are just going to find it harder and harder to retain that. And I think it's something like the Evening Standard used to have circulation of nearly 1 million, and now it's down to around 300,000. And that drop of 2/3, of course, COVID being a factor, happened only over the course of 3 years. And you can't think that they would ever get back to 1 million again. So they've got a new editor, Dylan Jones, who of course is going to be putting in a lot of ideas into the paper. But it's certainly they've sort of also said we're doubling down on going digital from now on.
So do you think there's a risk of us losing these free papers in their entirety?
It'll be a great shame if they were, because I still think they're very important in terms of providing kind of local reporting, or in the CEAM's case, specialist financial reporting. And I think that you only have to look at like The Independent, when that became a digital outlet only, even though it has, of course, front pages that get circulated online each day. You could feel it drop out of the conversation that I think people are having compared to, let's say, a newspaper or in the Stand does, even though newspaper circulation has, of course, over the last decade and more been dropping quite significantly. There's something about the fact that a paper provides kind of a position in British cultural life. And I think if you lose that, putting it online, competing against everything else, it's very difficult to keep your paper relevant.
Now, Apple could be made to pay for news content if the government gets its way. Currently, the UK's most popular news app offers a share of advertising revenue to publishers, with some benefiting from subscriptions. But in a bid to avoid market dominance, the new bill could mean Apple and other tech giants face stricter regulation. Now, Jane, what is the purpose of the Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Bill?
Well, there's a whole host of purposes that it has, but it's looking at broadly at, I think, competition in the tech sector and like what is fair and equitable and what isn't. And I think it's, looking at, sort of the competition in the area of news obviously is hotly debated. You remember what happened in Australia a few years ago, where actually Google and Facebook were made to start paying the providers of news.
How's that working out now?
I'm not sure of the update, but it's, it seems to be an ongoing situation that they have. I don't think it's encountered any difficulties, but I remember it was very, very contentious at the time because, who is the gatekeeper, who's providing the content and who funds it is really important. So I think, if it happened here, it wouldn't be a huge surprise. And also it wouldn't be a huge surprise because obviously Apple News is something, if you've got an iPhone, you tend to get Apple News, so millions of people have it. So it's one of the dominant news providers. There's no question.
Now, Scott, what are the potential changes for the large tech companies, do you think?
I mean, I think in regards to Apple's case, it's an interesting one because Apple News is fairly new. It's only come out in the last couple of years. They do pay out, through Apple News Plus. It means that companies such as The Times or Sunday Times receive money, a proportion of the subscriptions. I mean, I'm not entirely sure from what we know about how happy they are with these terms or how much other media titles are happy with what they get. I think, though, of course, if the regulation comes down too tightly, then Apple, who at the end of the day, their core business, as well as doing a lot of other services, but it's primarily phones, might go, why are we getting involved in this space? Like we don't have to be involved in this market. And then they could pull out. And of course, that's the same with Google, that's the same with Facebook, that's the same with others. It's always going to be a bit of a tightrope. But I think at a time when of course, the advertising industry is taking a big hit in terms of the money going into media publishers at the moment. We're certainly heading towards a bit of a fall rather than a bit of a rise. I think it's going to become a bigger story over the next few months and years. Okay.
Now, concerns over Channel 4 and ad revenue. Sir John Whittingdale MP this week revealed concerns over Channel 4's ability to move away from ad revenue. Scott, what's he been saying?
I mean, he's been saying that he's concerned on Channel 4 relying on advertising revenue, particularly as it's been having a very difficult few months. Channel 4 pretty much saying, look, we're not going to be making many shows over the summer. Ian Katz, though, giving an indication that things will return back to normal at one point soon. But of course, it's been a very difficult few months with an industry that relies entirely, or not entirely, but with a great deal of freelancers working from project to project, suddenly finding that at a time of the year when their projects normally go upwards, there are no projects to be found. So it's the case of, I think, John Whittingdale saying, with the new ideas that we're putting in with Channel 4, that they'll be able to come up with their own ideas in the same way that ITV Studios has. Maybe it will put less reliance for Channel 4 on just month-to-month advertising. And of course, we're going to have to wait and see about the long-term plan for that. I guess I saw, did you see Nadine Dorries was doing a thing being like, aha! If privatization of Channel 4 happens, then lo and behold, they wouldn't be in this situation. But then you're thinking, well, firstly, privatization, if it was going to happen, probably wouldn't have happened by now because things happen very slowly, particularly in regard to this media bill that's still not really gone through all of the steps yet. But also, I mean, if you look at the wider media market at the moment, nobody's having a really good time. So Channel 4 would have been adversely affected, I think, anyway, particularly at a time when streaming is going through a massive amount of consolidation, cuts, and of course a writer's strike at the same time. So I think it's a case that, yes, Channel 4 is having a very difficult month, but you're sort of wondering, well, would any situation would have led to where we are now?
Jane, what could this mean for the indie sector if Channel 4 in the future makes more content in-house? I mean, back in, before our time, 1982, when Channel 4 was formed, it was there to help support and to boost the UK indie sector. But if it's no longer there to do that, what's the point?
Well, you're absolutely right. That was part of its original purpose, was to support the sector. I mean, any gradual sort of shift towards in-house production is going to mean that it can monetize itself as a channel in other ways, but doesn't support the UK's production sector. So to a certain extent, these things sort of go in cycles and swings and roundabouts, but you can't benefit one part of the industry without taking it away from somebody else. So it's never going to be a win-win.
Okay, thank you. All right, who likes a quiz? Who doesn't like a quiz? Come on.
Well, I hated the quiz last time
Really?
because I lost. I got all the answers wrong, so I'm hoping this time I might do a little bit better.
I'm going to do a virtual drum roll. Time now for the quiz.
That was great. Really,
You liked it?
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Completely. If you're listening, you'll not be able to know what just happened. But he did try to actually do a drum
It
roll
looked like a drum
without
roll.
making any
It looked
noises,
like it, yeah.
so you couldn't hear it. But he did do it.
Why, thank you, virtual bow. And so, reboot or got the boot. I'll name a media brand or show. You tell me if this week they've had a reboot or got the boot. Okay? So you buzz in with your name and you know the answer. So Jane, if it's you, you say
Jane.
And Scott, if it's you, you say
Scott.
It's a really simple system and it works really well on radio.
Audio.
Or audio. Get it right.
Yeah, get it right.
It's only here for 1 week. All right, here it is. So number one, ESPN presenters.
Scott.
Okay.
I think they. What were the two options again?
Reboot
Going really well.
Or
Got the boot.
got the boot.
Got the boot. I think ESPN have announced 20 people to be departing.
That's very good. Well done.
Obviously, quite sad at them. Just like many roles being cut at the moment. Very, very sad times.
Yeah, so here it is. So they got the boot. About 20 on-air presenters from the US network have been let go. The cuts come amidst economic difficulty for the network due to a 25% decline in viewership over the past decade, and that's impacted their distribution revenue. Yeah, kind of strange we put that in the quiz really, wasn't it? I suppose.
Very depressing quizzes now, mate.
Yeah,
Doesn't it?
I'm sorry,
yeah.
That was a mistake.
Back to the drawing board.
Yeah, back to the, anyway. Okay, number 2, Biker Grove.
Jane.
Yes.
That's my name.
That's your name?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
your name.
That's my name. And the answer is reboot.
Correct.
Yeah, because I understand that Ant and Dec, who were originally in Biker Grove,
Mm-hmm.
are resurrecting in a new way a series called Biker as producers.
Very good. All right, reboot, yes. So everyone's favourite Geordie duo. They're going back to their roots, although not yet attached to a broadcaster. Fulwell 73 and the Pairs production company at Mitre Studios are preparing for a prime time slot. Did Biker Grove, was it ever on prime time? It was
it was my prime time.
Yeah, it was kids' prime time.
Kids' prime time.
Yeah.
10 past 5.
Yeah, unfortunately, it used to clash with my clarinet practice.
Oh.
So I was only ever able to see the ending titles or the opening titles.
What grade did you get to on the clarinet?
I got to grade 5.
Very good.
But then I had to change from a plastic clarinet to a real clarinet because my hands were too small. And when you move from one to the other, you have to learn the whole instrument all over again from the beginning. There's no correlation between where you put your fingers. So thanks for that. That was great.
For those interested, we have got an extra podcast talking about that later on with Scott. Do tune in. Number 3, The Andrew Neil Show.
Oh,
Jane.
yeah, you did say it first.
Yeah, he's getting the boot.
He has got the boot.
Yeah.
Why? What's gone on?
I think his show's been cancelled.
Yes.
Among a whole swathe of other things being cancelled on Channel 4 due to belt tightening and cost cutting, I would imagine.
Correct, that's right. So the Sunday night political show is the latest Channel 4 programme to face the chop. Although it's been well received since debuting last year, it won't return in 2023, and a comeback next year looks uncertain. By my calculations, I think that makes Jane our winner.
Yes, finally. Yeah.
Finally, how many times has that been for you now?
Once.
Once, all right. All right, well, thank you both very much. Thanks, Jane Ostler and Scott Bryan. Where can our listeners find each of you and keep up with your work?
Kantar.com, or I'm also Jane E. Ostler on Threads.
On Threads.
There we go.
There we go.
Got
Plug
it
the
in.
Threads. How about you, Scott?
At Scotty GB on social media, because it's pretty much Threads. It's exhausting, even on Be Real. Like, can we just decide? Can we just decide one social media app? Stick to it.
That's China, right? Isn't it?
Stressful. It's a first world dilemma issue. But like, can we just choose one and move on with our lives? Because, geez, Louise,
it's too much.
It's too much.
I thought you'd be against monopolies.
That's another. I'm discussing that on the other podcast. The
really?
One.
Yeah, very good.
That's the opening. That's the opening number.
Against monopolies. Thank you both very much. Thank you.
Thank you.